Thank you all very much, and thank you to the Creative Mornings team for the invitation and the opportunity to talk to everybody here in this remote setting. You know, it feels like another world ago. I actually met with the Creative Mornings team back in February about this, and obviously doing it in the more traditional sense. But I'm glad that we've finally been able to meet and give me the opportunity to tell the Space Tango story, because what we'd really like for people listening in is to know about Space Tango, based here in Lexington, and so that when they see news going on really in the space industry, they can cheer it on and understand that there is something local happening that is in the kind of the broader space industry. So again, my name is Twyman Clements. I'm the co-founder and CEO, and I'm excited to kind of show you a little bit about this company. So what we do, what Space Tango does, is we inspire, innovate, and create a better future for humanity using the unique environment of space. And we're going to show a little bit about how we do that. But what this photo shows is actually one of our experiments, some of the work that we do on the International Space Station. And this is a real photo. This is actually a photo taken by one of the astronauts earlier this year. And we talked a little bit about having working together with creatives and others. And one shout out is that our logo, we were certainly a startup that came out as I was a student at the University of Kentucky. We really needed a nice logo, so we actually worked with Bullhorn here in Lexington, who did a great job with our branding, and that branding has been now put all across the International Space Station. But what we do at Space Tango is we develop experiments and then hopefully manufacturing, which we'll get to in a second, that the experiments that operate on the International Space Station and really utilize the unique environment of microgravity. So for us, space is really just a means to an end to get to this zero gravity environment. And that sounds pretty audacious and pretty crazy, but there's actually a little bit of a historical precedence to this, and that's actually what's kind of shown behind me, is that every time, if you take the long view, every time humanity has really harnessed a physics environment, there's been new technology, capital creation, and progress of humanity. And this precedence goes all the way back to really the 1200s with magnetism. And then you can go through with vacuum and electromagnetism and electricity. And due to kind of the commercialization of space, which I'll touch on, microgravity is really that next frontier. And what Space Tango is really trying to do is build kind of the middleware between the infrastructure of space flight and the science. We want to build that out so that we can really do research and development, high throughput research and development on the International Space Station, find where there's value, and then work with those customers to actually scale that to manufacturing use cases. And so that gives you a little bit of a historical precedent and a little bit of the philosophy of how we think about it. So one good example here to think about how we're doing this, and also putting it in kind of the technological history, is where we are in the space economy broadly. Is we're at a turning point of the base infrastructure of getting to space becoming cheaper. And a nice example of this is actually one that a lot of us, and probably those on this meeting can relate to, is using an example of the internet. And so I'm going to contrast the internet, the development of the internet, to the space industry now. A lot of us growing up knew the internet is very slow, used for very specific uses, for obviously very low bandwidth email, maybe some corporate transactions, some data storage, but really not much. And then around 2005, bandwidth and data rates got to a price where you could now build use cases and technologies on top of that base infrastructure, like commerce, social, travel, all these different things that we now know as the modern world that we're using right now. That knee in the curve had to happen. There had to be that base level of capability, and the price had to be right. That same dynamic is now happening in the space industry. Obviously, we know the players between Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, government funding, the cost and the access to space, and for us, zero gravity, has greatly increased. And now you can build, just like a Google or a Facebook or an Amazon or Zoom have built on top of the base infrastructure of the internet, now you can build use cases of using space, of using microgravity on top of that base infrastructure of a SpaceX, a Blue Origin, a Northrop Grumman, any of these other kind of providers. So that gives you a little bit of context, both in terms of the historical precedents and the moment that we're in right now, of why we feel the timing is great, and it's really an exciting time to be working in the space industry. So what you're seeing behind me, to talk a little bit about the equipment and some of my show and tell here, is we fit these experiments in what we call cube labs. And right now they look like metal boxes. That's what you're seeing on the screen right now. We're going to show you what those look like inside here in just a second. But those experiments then plug into our facilities, and I've got two of our facilities right next to me. The one on the left is what we call the PAL, the Powered Ascent Utility Locker. That is what actually holds two different experiments and gets bolted directly in to a Dragon or a Cygnus capsule and eventually a Dream Chaser. And it runs experiments actually all the way through flight, typically life science experiments where you've got to maintain incubation temperatures. The one on the right is our Tango Lab facility that only operates on the International Space Station. And you're going to see that in action in just a second. But this gives you a relative size. And these have been designed, particularly the Tango Lab, all designed, built by Space Tango, developed in Lexington, built right on our, built in different offices that we've had. We're now located on Winchester Road. So, and that's where we really operate our experiments as well. So if we go to the next slide, what you'll see is, so this is what the inside of a cube lab looks like. And I'm going to focus in on this one. Was actually a brain organoid study that we did, which is a combination of crazy words, but it's an amazingly interesting area of study. But if you open one of those metal boxes, what it is automation. What we are doing is automating standard processes, whether it's cell culture. We've done a lot of work in plant science, growing plants, microbiology. We automate it because we actually want an automated system so that we have as little astronaut input as possible, because we're working towards a scalable future using space where we don't, in our view, we want as little human intervention as possible. The next photo shows, again, some of our experiments. This is actually a tissue chip system that was developed and flown, that flew on our PAL facility. So actually, if you can see in the top right-hand corner of the photo you see there, you can see the same logo. That's actually physically the same facility that is sitting right here. The facility to my left has flown already 4 times and is going to be going back to space on a SpaceX 21 mission in early December. So this again shows you the work that we're doing with customers all around the world. We work with those customers, we take their science, we understand what they want to do, we put it in these automated systems, and then we fly it. So this video you're seeing now is actually a video taken on Tuesday. This is Kate Rubins. She's the only US astronaut on orbit right now. You can see our nice logo. This is Kate installing some equipment inside one of our Tango labs. And while she's doing this, we're actually talking to her from our Mission Operations Center here in Lexington. So as she was installing this, we were telling her if things were oriented correctly, and then eventually she ends up closing the door, turning it on, and then it, I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but connects to the space station internet, and then we're able to run experiments, pull down data, and distribute that to the customers all around the world. So again, just wanted to show you how these ideas are developed and then flown and operated. So wanted to inform kind of the viewers. So how are we viewing, I've kind of given you the background and the technological base, but then what are use cases that need microgravity? I keep kind of talking about that, kind of talking about manufacturing. And we break these stages into 3 distinct areas. There's material sciences, there's layer deposition work, and then there's work in the biologics, where microgravity is a value add. It's part of the manufacturing process. So you could think about, you take iron or aluminum ore out of the ground, you use heat and pressure and a couple of other processes, but you use those physical parameters to take an ore and you create a finished product, let's say a car door or anything else like that. And so microgravity is now this kind of new lever that humanity can now leverage to take raw material into finished product. And so in material sciences, microgravity's value add is that without gravity, there's no density. And so you can have pure crystallizations of certain mixtures. If you move to layer depositions, where you're using whether it's a protein or a metal or other materials on substrates, what you want is a still homogeneous fluid to get even layering. And the only way to get a still homogeneous fluid is to not have gravity that are pulling different objects of different densities down and settling. And again, it sounds simple, but when you're able to leverage this, it opens up these new possibilities that we're working with a diverse set of customers on. And then the last one, the biologics can break into several different areas. There's brain organoid work. There's work in iPSC cells and culturing large batches of stem cells, because work has shown that you can maintain pluripotency. And again, this is a whole nother talk, but you can maintain pluripotency of stem cells in a zero gravity environment, as well as work in vaccine development and others that Space Tango is working with, again, a diverse set of customers on to really commercialize and understand how we can use microgravity for benefit. So my next slide shows, this is the ambition. This is kind of the vision, right? So we've talked about, kind of showed those use cases. How do you scale that, right? And so this is basically our factory. This is a concept we came out with a few years ago. It's called ST42. It's certainly a working title right now, but it's a uncrewed gumdrop shaped reentry capsule that would not dock with anything. It would take up raw material. It would hold our automation equipment within it to basically take that raw material, that raw stock, into a finished product and then return it back to Earth. Just like, I'm going to use some terminology, but same as the concept of operations of like, the Apollo or the CRS missions right now. Obviously, we're not going to go all the way to the moon. We're pretty orbit agnostic. We just need zero gravity for the time scales of a few days to a few weeks, and that's where the Vomit Comet or suborbital flight that has been in the news a little bit. Those are too short a durations for what we're trying to do. So the last thing I'll show you here is working off of our themes of transit, and wanted to show, this is a great image, or actually a great video that we got captured from a SpaceX 15 mission that we did a couple of years ago. And this is actually the second stage. After the first stage has fallen away, this is the second stage taking off into orbit this launched at about 5:30 in the morning out of Cape Canaveral. And so the sun is just coming up, and the second stage is taking off. And I just love this little video of our equipment, of our work, of all these other things kind of taking off over into the sunset. And luckily all of that came back for us. So, with that, I know that was really quick, but again, I wanted to give everybody a little bit of a background of what's happening here in Lexington, of the work that we're doing, the motivation that we have, and the exciting kind of future that we think is ahead of us. So thank you all very much for hosting me.